Welcome to Redvee TV, supported by A-Star Recruitment for the 2020 season, as we look ahead to whatever's coming next. But before we go any further, we would like to thank A-Star for their continued support during this lockdown. You still can see the A-Star Job of the Week on the Redvee website. Uncertain times, if you need work, they're the people to look towards. Isn't that right, Kevin?
It certainly is, yes.
We thought we'd better do a video. It's been a couple of weeks. There's a few items to actually talk about this time round.
Thank God. We could just talk about how boring it is not to have Super League, if you wanted to.
Yeah, even for us who obviously run Redvee, it's tough going, isn't it? With you're essentially, I'd say, feeding on scraps, but that might be being too kind. It's hard to stay motivated at this moment in time with nothing happening. Listen, the only thing that's motivated us over the last week is getting the London Saints game on Sky on Friday night, and we won. But yeah, the NRL came back last weekend. Did you see any of it?
As you know, Dave, I'm still working full time, so I've not got the luxury of a Thursday or Friday morning.
Have you seen any of the clips with the crowd noise pumped in them?
No.
Well, it works. Surprisingly, it makes it.
I've heard about it. Yeah, I've heard about it. I've heard how it picks up whenever there's a try scored and or something happens. And you know what? It's probably needed because we mentioned the football. We've been over to Germany a couple of times to watch the football. The atmosphere over there is tremendous. And then you watch it with no fans in the stadium and there's nothing. And it's like part football a little bit with the fact that there's just like shouts echoing around the stadium. So fair play to him for trying it. And judging by social media, it looks like it's a good decision to do it.
It's just going to be a strange one if they put a Salford home game on Sky and then put this crowd noise over the top, and people will be like thinking, that's not normal.
I don't know if they still do it. Do you remember going to the Willows and they would pipe in little bits of crowd noise and songs over the top?
Just about when I was ducking the bricks that used to fly over from outside the away end, when the kids outside used to pep you with the bricks. Good times. Good days. The salary cap was the big topic of discussion last week, wasn't it? There was rumours that there were 5 or 6 clubs who were wanting to see the salary cap reduced, and then they come out with the news that unanimous decision that they're all going to keep the salary cap the same.
Well, Matt Shaw said there was actually no vote. It was a late twist that meant clubs in favour of the reduction accepted that they'd lost before a vote even took place, but they still agreed to have a united front. You can understand why they kind of want to try and keep the competition level by saying, oh, well, you can't spend this amount of money on players. But I just think it's going backwards, that. And I think that you then turning around to players who are going out there and providing entertainment and probably aren't getting paid a wage high enough for what they do in the particular, like in a sporting environment, I'll say. And you think, would the likes of Alex Walmsley, James Roby a couple of years ago, I know Luke Thompson's got Tommy Makinson, would they turn down the NRL or even one of their feeder clubs if money is kind of taken away from the game over here?
I think even going to union as well would become more of a proposition. It sends out the wrong signals for me, and long term I think would have caused more damage, because how much were they looking to reduce it by? It can't have been by that much. And for me, you know what? If you want to spend less, but don't penalise the clubs that can spend up to the salary cap at this moment in time.
Yeah, I think they're looking at missing out on about 300 grand each next year with the funding coming in from Sky, but it might have well have been in line with that. But listen, cut your cloth accordingly. There may still be reductions in player wages. Hands might be tied on that. And I think on the flip side, you can't expect at the minute for the salary cap to be probably abolished or even raised, because clubs can't afford it, and it would end up, or you could end up having the boom and bust type of club that we've had in the past. But I just think you're putting out the wrong message. You've got to look at the bigger picture, and you're putting out the wrong message if you start looking at dropping the salary cap, because why would you not kind of go into a trade instead, or stay at college a bit longer, even try and get into university and set yourself up for life that way rather than following your dream? Because you could still play rugby at a semi-pro level for a club round here, or even for at amateur level, and you could still get the enjoyment and not have the pressure of being on a contract that might be up in 2 or 3 years' time and you don't get another one.
And I think you're quite right there. Listen, you look at the amount of players who've come into the game and gone out at a young age, and they probably sacrificed quite a lot in terms of potentially their education in order to pursue a dream of playing sport. And let's be honest, we'd all love to be able to play professional sport, but they sacrificed quite a lot. And you look at maybe some of the careers that players end up in after the game, and they've probably never reached the full potential in terms of work outside of the sport. And do you know what? Big strides have been made over the last few years, haven't they? I know, I think we've seen even this year, I think with Kyle Amor and a few of the other players looking to go and do essentially a PE degree at Carmel College and to get into teaching. And it's good that those initiatives are there for players. But I think if you take the salary away that they get while they're playing, then you're quite right, and they'll probably look at university and other careers a lot sooner.
Well, that's it. Or as you say, like, they might look at union, and is there a way into playing rugby union, and they need more players in a squad. They've got the national game kind of set up better, so when the Six Nations is about, or we've had it with the World Cup in rugby union, where they play that at the same time as a domestic campaign. So the England players all go off and play for England. So people other players have got to come and step up to like first 15 rugby. And who's to say that some of our best talents, you look at the likes of Tommy Makinson, he'd make it in rugby union.
No, nailed on. He'd be in the England team.
Yeah, he'd be a fullback. He wouldn't be a winger. He'd be a fullback, but he has got a kicking game. He's quick. He's strong. You're right. Would we see the likes of Tommy Makinson playing for Saints, or would we see him playing for Sale instead?
Rule changes have come in as well, haven't they? The 6 more tackle rule, or 6 tackles again. If for anybody found guilty of holding down the ruck, instead of penalising the team with a penalty, the referee will wave 6 again, and try to keep the game flowing. If it's multiple fouls or penalties given away, the referee can then choose to award a kick of goal and sin bin the player automatically. What do you make of it?
I've not seen it in action. I've been quite vocal on Twitter, just asking questions about it. I've not got a problem with it in theory. It sounds like a great way, and it seems to have been taken on by fans how it quickens the game up. You just look at have a look at nuances, because teams will get smarter and they'll start, whether they hold on to the ball just that little bit more loose when there's a hand on the ball in the ruck, when they're near their own line, they've been under the pump, struggling to get out, and the opposition give away a stupid penalty. So they might get an 8 tackle set, but you think if you've just defended, we'll say 3 sets, and then the opposition do something stupid, hand on the ball, little pull of the leg, what's better? Is it a breather and a touch finder, or is it to roll the tackle count back to 6?
Yeah, I think if teams are under the pump and they give that penalty away, it's going to go straight back to 6, so they'll still be under the pump. But for me, if you're going to give the penalty away, I don't know. For me, what happens if you want to take the 2?
Well, you can't at the minute. You can't choose that. It's on referees' discretion. I know that the head of football in the NRL has said refs have the option to sum up the situation and make sure the attacking team isn't disadvantaged by fair play. But yeah, it might sound like I'm just nitpicking, but I'm just thinking, what happens if you've had a clean ruck? It's doing its job all the way through the game. You end up having a penalty against you, or for you even, in 79 minutes, 50 seconds. Danny Richardson against Warrington, 2018. You're on halfway. There's no time left. So you get another set 6. Well, how can a referee turn around and say, well, I'm going to give you the shot at goal, but we've only had a couple of penalties like this all game, but I didn't give you a shot at goal after 3 minutes, but I'm going to give you a shot at goal now. I just think there's a couple of nuances that I'd like clearing up, and people probably will in the comments, replies or whatever, tell me how that will work, please, because I don't want it to be kind of decisions that are given on the time on the clock. It should be decisions that are given in play by a referee that suit that moment. It shouldn't be, right, okay, you have a pop. Do you want to pop a goal now because you're on 79 minutes and you can win it?
Kev, keep your head still. The mic's cracking. It's all over the show. You're passionate about this one.
It's just, as I say, it's
captain's
just
call.
You see, captain's call means something else in the NRL, doesn't it?
But I mean,
it's
maybe the player who's being held down should have the choice of playing the ball if he wants to play the ball, or if he knows the referee's call for the penalty, can keep hold of it and point at the sticks and says we'll take the 2. But it's got to be an instant decision.
But I think that goes away from the whole idea of the rule change, because they want to quicken the game up. They don't want to be stopping and having penalties. I almost think that there's still room in the game for a touch finder that might put you 40 metres. Well, not if you're saying it's 40 metres further down the pitch, because we only ever seem to put it 10. Yeah, but that's it. There's room for that. There's room for getting a breather, getting your line set. You've been defending for a good 5 minutes, couple of sets, and then you get a daft penalty, and you can put it to touch. And I know it's only for messing about at the ruck, so offside will still be a full penalty, and like anything like that, anything like a headshot again, is still a full penalty. But I just think there's little nuances that teams, coaches will be clever about, and will start kind of getting it to their advantage. Yeah, and fair play to them for doing that. But it's something that I just at the minute I'm a little bit sceptical. Rule as a whole, I think sounds a great idea. I'm just a little bit sceptical about parts of it.
And I think that could be my issue with the game. The referee can have too much of an influence on the flow and the results in terms of what he calls and how he calls it and when he calls it. You already see in games the way referees coach teams through a game in order to obviously to keep the game flowing. But it shouldn't be a referee's job to say you're offside. If he's offside, for me, they're offside, and you call the penalty. You're essentially acting as an on-field coach to stop them giving away penalties. And I don't know. I can see why it's done, but I can also see the argument for saying, well, the referees shouldn't be trying to influence a team's performance at all.
I think that's where you just need your team to be smarter, that if a ref tells you something, you listen to it. You don't start getting involved, you let it go.
Next thing to discuss, in the media this week, James Bentley and Jack Ashworth are out of contract at the end of the season. There is talk of other clubs circling and being interested, as you would be, for any Saints player. But apparently the club have offered them new deals. What do you make?
I think it'd be, for a start, I think we've got quite a few. Pat Kamenu are out of contract. Apart from Ashworth, Bentley, I don't know if Tyre is. Thompson's obviously going. Peru, Moore, LMS. I think they're all out of contract unless I missed something. So it's going to be a lot of turmoil in the pack as it is. I'd like to see us definitely keep hold of James Bentley. I think he provides a good amount of versatility, and you can see where his quality lies in that second row. When he's played he does look like he hits above his weight. And I think
he's improving as well and still shows a lot of promise.
Yeah, and Cass and Hull KR are the two clubs that Gareth Walker said that were interested in Bentley. I think he's somebody that you've got to definitely look to try and keep hold of. Jack Ashworth, it's difficult with Jack because there was a lot of, which we won't go into here, but a lot of speculation about his private life that was going around on social media. Now, with Jack, sometimes I don't know what he is. Is he a prop? Is he a second rower? I'd like to see, and listen, the lad's fitter than I am. I'd like to see him be able to do more minutes.
The thing with Jack Ashworth, for me, he's not a youngster anymore.
Yeah, he's 24.
I know he plays in the pack, but for me, he's never kicked on.
Well, listen, the lad's had a couple of years out with injury as well. So that's obviously dragged him back. Saints have seen something in him. He used to play centre, so he's got a decent pair of hands. But you just want to see him kind of. I think we say it at the start of every season where you turn around and say who you're looking forward to seeing kicking on. And he's one of them now. He needs to take this almost second pre-season and go, right, well, Luke Thompson's going. I should be the next Luke Thompson, really. I want to just see him do more minutes because I think he's been linked with Cass, Salford and Huddersfield. And could you see him at one of them clubs? Probably, yeah. He just needs probably a bit more stamina, which is very easy for me to say who does absolutely zero exercise at all.
Hey, 250 kilometres last month, apparently you've walked.
Yeah, about that. Not so bad.
Every step of the way.
That doesn't surprise me.
Okay, then let's look at it from Jack Ashworth's perspective. Then, will he maybe look at it and think, does he need a potentially a fresh start and go to a Huddersfield or a Salford where he'll be a big fish in a small pond?
Why would you? I think we've mentioned it
rather
numerous
than be
times.
A squad player at Saints.
But he's still getting bench appearances, and nowadays it's not like when people used to come on a sub and they may get a game or it's just for injury. They get good minutes, and you can get good minutes off the bench. It's not the same. It's not got almost that stigma of, oh, he's a super sub, he always comes on. I think if you're a player, you want to play for one of the big teams. You want to play for a Saints, you want to play for a Wigan, you want to play for a Leeds or a Hull. You want to play for a big team.
Given the situation that we've seen this season with the pandemic and all the uncertainty around the game, how much will a contract come into it though? So potentially, if he gets offered by the likes of a Huddersfield or a Cass a 3 or 4 year deal, but then maybe Saints come along and it's only maybe a season initially with a season in the club's favour. Will players who are on the fringe or not the stars of the clubs, are they all going to start looking at their own financial futures to try and set themselves up and go with the job security of a longer contract? And essentially, can you blame any player who will in the future look to secure themselves?
No, I think that's one thing as a fan. You kind of, because you're so invested in it, it's not a job to us. It's a passion.
Yeah.
Now, I know rugby players are passionate about playing the sport, but at the end of the day, they've got to look after the future. If Jack Ashworth was offered a 4-year deal by Huddersfield and a 1-year deal by Saints, could you blame him for taking it? Not at all. That then comes into what Jack wants to do with regards to, does he see Huddersfield winning trophies soon in comparison with Saints? But he might turn around and say, actually, I could be part of something here. They've got Aidan Caesar. He started to do things. He might start attracting players to the club. I can get a starting spot or at least be in the 17 every single week, rather than maybe dropping out sometimes when Kyler Moore's come back fit and Louis fit, and you've got all that experience that you can pack your bench with. That's then a complete decision that he needs to look at for his future. He's from Oldham as well, which isn't too far away from Huddersfield. It's probably closer than St Helens, isn't it? So he's got to look at every different aspect. You wouldn't blame him for it, but it then comes down to, does he want to carry on playing for the security, or does he want to think, well, actually, I might have a chance of winning pots here at St Helens? Lastly,
I think it would be wrong of us not to talk about the enigma. That is Ben Barba. He's done an interview in Australia this week where he's potentially talked about if he ever had opportunity, he'd like to come back over to St Helens and play again. I think he said it was a mistake for him actually leaving the first time round. He blamed family issues at the time. I think he said his grandmother died while he was over here. I think he's admitted he's made a lot of mistakes, a lot of public ones as well. But if you ever got opportunity, he'd like to come back to us. The question is, would we have him back?
No, not for me. Ben Barba is one of the most talented players I've ever seen put on a Saints shirt. Have his bridges been burnt though? Yeah, I think so. Listen, you've got to feel for the lad being a world away from his family, and his grandmother died. I think he actually said Saints offered him the chance to go home for the funeral, but he said he wanted to come back. He knew he wanted to come back if he'd have gone.
And that tells you a lot about a fragile man.
Yeah, and I think he's better off getting himself sorted. If he needs any relevant help, getting that sorted, and kind of just staying at home and staying around his family. I mean, I think we had a little chat before this call, and we said he's probably kind of getting on a little bit. He's not like a 23-year-old who's had a year out the game.
Well, he wouldn't be back next year anyway, because he's first of all, he's not played, and he was on about playing local league this year, but it's probably going to be next year now. So even at best, he'd be coming over at 32 after 3 years out of the game. A lot of his game was based on pace, which can diminish quite rapidly once you get into your 30s. He was never the best defensively. So if you start losing the main asset of your game, I'd sooner offer a 31, 32-year-old Lachlan Coote another year and have his dependability than be taking a massive risk to bring a Ben Barba back with potentially the baggage and the problems that you could end up with on the back of it. Could I see Ben Barba back in Super League? Definitely. I think the likes of, again, Toronto, Salford, Huddersfield would take a gamble because if it worked out, then potentially you've got an X Factor star back in your team.
Yeah, that's it. I could see him back in Super League, but you're right. You want one of them players who you can depend on. And I don't think Lachlan Coote really came over here thinking, oh yeah, great, I can't wait to move into sunny St Helens. I mean, he's had the weather for it over the past couple of weeks.
Beautiful.
It's got terrible. But
I'm waiting on sunbeds to arrive, Kev.
On sunbed.
When it's starting to rain, it'll come now.
But yeah, I don't think Lachlan Coote's kind of thought that this was going to be as good as it's been for him. And as you say, he loves it here, and he's quite happy over here at the moment. So even if Coote's contract was coming to an end, I'd prefer to see either us recruit sensibly, that we'd have a fullback for 2 or 3 years, or be bringing someone through the academy who will play fullback, who we could have for 10 years. So if you're going to bring an Aussie over, you don't necessarily want to bring back a potentially 33-year-old Ben Barba, even though, as I say, he's one of the best players I've ever seen in the Saints shirt.
Yeah, and I'm not going to diminish that. I'm not looking back with, I don't know, people tend to rewrite history, don't they? Let's be honest about it. Ben Barba in that season, when he was on it, was one of the best we've ever seen.
Yeah.
That's it. I'm glad that, and I'm actually glad. I know people say, "Oh, you didn't win anything with him." But you know what? We've seen Ben Barba for a year in the flesh, and some of the things he did at the time were absolutely magical.
Yeah, listen, the lad's obviously had his problems, and he's towards the end of his time at Saints. It did look like he put the queue on the rack, but you knew full well that if he'd have fancied it, like if we'd have got to a grand final that year, big if I know, but if we'd have got to the grand final that year and he'd have turned around and thought, you know what, I fancy going home with the winner's ring here, he could have turned up for 40 minutes, blown the game away, and he could have sat underneath the posts for the next 40 minutes, and it wouldn't have mattered.
I've just had a thought. I don't know whether you've watched The Last Dance on Netflix yet with Michael Jordan. It's a bit like Dennis Rodman, who decided he needed a mid-season break and went to Las Vegas partying. He got given 48 hours, didn't come back. And Michael Jordan had to go to Vegas and drag him out of a hotel room.
Fair enough.
But when he was on it, he was on it.
Yeah.
I've just ruined one of the episodes for someone. Never mind.
Me, because I've not seen it yet.
Right, 26 minutes in. I wonder if anybody's still watching.
No.
Not. But if you are, well done.
Hopefully they are. Hopefully they're just looking at your head. Down to the wood, that lad.
Kev, I did that myself.
Did you?
You can't tell, can you?
No. Looks like the felt on a pool table.
Nice though. Look, 10 years younger. You look younger now. You got rid of the beard as much.
Yeah. Thanks, Dave.
Always there with the compliments, aren't we?
Yeah.
What's safe to peak, by the way?
Safe to speak.
Oh no, yes is not safe. It just says safe to peak. There we go.
Is it on?
Yeah.
It's a charity. If you need it.
Don't show your shelves too much. People will be telling you off for showing the crosses. Can of worms open. Right. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks to Kev for joining us. Well done for paying your phone bill so you could come on this week. And we will catch you soon.
How many times have I asked you, are we filming?
Busy lives. It's hard life, this lockdown, Mark, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Right. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It's a bye from me.
And it's a goodbye from him.
Catch you soon.